welcome to this week's live Q&A for Parenting in My Pocket. I hope you've all been keeping well and the week has been going all right for everybody. What's been happening? Yeah, I want to thank the people who have been sending me photographs of myself from the Elaine show today. That's just what I need to see. Photographs of me on the telly, sitting right here. But well, I'm happy with how it went. I haven't seen it back yet, but look, nobody has sent me a message saying, what the hell are you talking about, you idiot? So that's always a win when I can start off things like that. I finally got my Dolores McGovern print up. If you guys can check out her stuff, she's got some lovely pictures from Drogheda. I just think they're fantastic. So Dolores, shout out to you. I've never met you, but maybe we'll meet someday in the future. What else has been going on? It's been a busy week here. Got a sneak peek just before I came live of the Parenting in My Pocket Volume 2 book cover, which was great to see. It kind of, one, it makes it a bit more real that it's actually going to happen. A second book is going to come out. But secondly, it's also given me a bit of a rocket up my ass because I need to get moving to get the book complete. So thank you to my editor for sending me over my front cover to basically give me a kick in the ass and get me moving again. So I hope everyone's had a good week. It is really misty all day here in Drogheda. It's still pretty misty, so I'm going to be taking the dogs out for a walk after this. And I'll hopefully find my way back home anyway. So yeah, thank you to Elaine Crowley as well for having me back on the show today, talking about parents dealing with school at home. It's always fun to be on her show, and it was nice to not have to travel to the show today. Not that I have any problem traveling to the show, but it was nice to be able to do it from the comfort of my own home. And my new broadband provider didn't decide to come in and install the new broadband router at the same time as I was meant to be on, so that would have caused a bit of conflict between myself and the broadband installers. So today we've got a couple of questions. Please do take us up on the offer of the online courses. I'd love to get your opinion on them. See, for those of you who are doing them, please do let me know what you think. It would be great. And what else? That's pretty much it. There's not much to tell you. Check out the podcast. Myself and Mary had a really good chat today. It's being released tomorrow about the limiting beliefs. The last discussion I had with Jerry Kelly on LMFM is now out as well. Mary's motivation interview will be coming out in the next couple of days as well. So it's pretty full on at the moment, and but I wouldn't have it any other way. Well, no, I wouldn't actually. I wouldn't if I had my choice. Well, yeah, please do support the Patreon page, patreon.com/Allo podcast. Thank you to all the patrons for your continued support. It's very nice that you all have not left me alone to talk to myself, and you actually listen to my podcast and support and like and share. Right, we're going to crack into the questions today. And the relationship between myself and my husband has completely disintegrated, and we've decided to split up. We've been staying in different bedrooms for the past year, and he is now going to move out and back in with his parents. We have 2 boys who are 7 and 11. I'm getting in touch as I'm not sure how we go about telling them that their dad is moving out. They absolutely adore him, and I know they will be devastated. I'm worried about upsetting them too much, and I don't know how to deal with them when he does actually move out, because they'll be staying with me. In my mind, we were always going to be together, and I just feel completely lost about what life is ahead for all of us. Have you any tips on how best to make this as easy as possible for the boys? Well, the first thing I say is I'm sorry to hear that your relationship has broken down. That's extremely difficult. As you said, for 99% of people, when they get into a marriage, they think it's for life, and they hope it's for life, and they work as if it's for life. And then you bring children into the world and you work as parents, and sometimes it just doesn't work out, and that is so heartbreaking for so many parents, because what you want to do is you want to try and give your children what we see as a traditional family upbringing, where there's mom, dad and the children. But more and more that's happening less and less often, and it's, it's just a part of life. Certainly in Ireland, it's something that is relatively new because a lot of parents stayed together because legally they couldn't separate and legally they couldn't get divorced up until very, very recently. So it's a relatively new phenomenon for a lot of children in Ireland to be going through the experience of having to deal with the separation. So what this parent is saying is she's looking for ways to reduce the level of sadness and upset that the children feel and try and support them as best as she can. But the first thing I'll say is, and we've probably all heard me say it, is you need to look after yourself as well. It's really, really important you take care of yourself through this process because you're dealing with a separation, you're dealing with the breakup, and you don't know what's going to happen down the line. Now, ultimately, you guys are most likely going to be okay. You'll find a way of working. It may take a week, it may take 10 years, who knows? You don't know. But you and your husband, soon to be ex-husband, will find a way of working together for the children, for the best of the children. And that's not to say there's not going to be challenges up and down the way or along the way, but there will come a time where he's not in the ether of you outside of just the children. So look to get support for yourself. If you need a therapist or you need to see a counsellor to help you through it, that's okay. Because sometimes what can happen is you can go and speak to your family and you can speak to your friends and they'll give you wonderful advice, but they're emotionally invested in you and they're emotionally attached to you. So what happens then is that they will say things like, he's not good enough for you, or they'll point out all the flaws that he has and all the things he should do or shouldn't do or whatever. And sometimes that's not necessarily what you need in the moment. Sometimes all you need in the moment is just an ear, somebody to hear you and hear what you're saying so that you have the opportunity to get it out without having to listen to somebody bad-mouthing him, you, the children, whatever, and telling you what you should and shouldn't do. So please do go and get some professional help to support you through this process, which will help you manage things better for your children. Now, the other thing is, they are going to be extremely upset, and that's okay. And that can sound slightly counterintuitive, but the reality is their emotion and what they experience through the events that happen in their lives is theirs to own, and it's theirs to deal with and process as best they can. Now you can support them through that, you can be there for them, you can listen, and because they're going to be staying with you more often by the sounds of it, there is a chance you'll be the one who will get the questions, who will get the angry reactions, who will get the frustration. It's not fair, but it's just the circumstance. And what your children need is somebody just to say, right, I'm going to take care of you. It's okay. Everything's going to be okay. We are going to be okay. It's all right to be upset, but we are all going to be okay. And I'm here to listen to you and make that actually happen. So now, what you may have is you may have one son who will cry and scream and shout and roar and tell you how he hates you and he hates dad for doing this to him. And you may have another child who says nothing and goes quiet. And they're the child that we can start to worry most about because they're not expressing their emotions. But sometimes what they need is just that opportunity to process things for themselves. And they may start to look after you or try and take care of you and dad so that they start to focus on the external so that they can just be okay within themselves. So I'd sit them down. If you and your ex can have that conversation together where you discuss it and you can be together, where there's no blame being passed around, it's just mum and dad no longer are in love, so dad is going to go and live with granny and granddad, but you will see dad really regularly. You guys have this conversation beforehand really regularly. He may still call around every evening. Who knows what way you guys are going to work it out, but have that conversation with your husband first to see, well, what are we telling the children and how are we telling the children something that we can actually put in place? Because what you don't want is to make promises to the kids that neither of you can keep. So have a conversation with them. and say, well, what are we going to do going forward? And then explain it to the kids that you're going to see your dad, you're going to see your mum, you're going to spend time with both of us, and that it's all right to be upset, it's all right to talk to either of us about what's going on for you, and that we will try and make your lives as calm as possible through this process. And that's a really important starting point for you and your husband as well, because the anger and the hurt can override the love of the children. So I'm so annoyed at him, or I'm so annoyed at her, that I need to be as obstructive as possible, or I don't think they're a good parent, so I'm not going to let them have the children. And what ultimately happens is you damage your relationship with your children because you become obstructive, and your focus goes off the children and goes on to the other parent. And ultimately everybody loses out. So the best you guys can work together, it's ultimately going to be of benefit for the kids. Explain to them, try and make the plans. So if they're with dad on a Saturday and Sunday, or Thursday, Friday, or Saturday, whatever it is, whatever you decide, let them know what it is. With the ages that they are, do up a little chart, a little wall planner for both of them, so they can see what days they're going to be with mum, what days they're going to be with dad. It doesn't mean that they're all just going to be, oh, that's great, thanks very much, we sorted that out. They will be upset, they may be angry, they may be hurt. That's okay. It's all right for them to feel how they're feeling. And maybe check in and can you get your siblings, if you have siblings, or your parents if your parents are around, or dad's siblings or parents if they're around, to just be there for the kids as well and offer them support that they may not have, because they may not want to tell you things because they know you're hurting, both of you, so they may want to keep you safe and not bring things to you that are going on for them. So it's all right then for them to have the conversation with the other people, and then try and stick as best as you can to the plans that you've made going forward. And if you can, try and find a way of negotiating and working together for the good of the children, so that they're not the ones getting caught in the middle. So simple things like, if they are with dad, that it's not, what did you do with dad? What did you eat with dad? Did dad just get takeaway? Because what can happen then is the children can feel scrutinised, and they're the ones who then feel like they have to hide things from you. And ultimately what you're saying is you want the complete opposite. You want them to be as open as possible with you. But part of that comes from you and how you interact with them. So please don't start questioning about that unless you're worried. Like if you're worried about them being mistreated or malnourished or anything like that. But the chances are they're probably not. Now, the other side of it is, if they're with you more often than dad, he may become fun dad, where he goes off and does things, and that can be frustrating for you. I think that's why it's really important for you to get a counsellor or a therapist to work with through this process, so that you can manage that frustration and not take it out on anybody else, and work through it yourself, because that's going to be of benefit to you and the kids as well. So sit down with your husband, plan out how things are going to look, even just in the short term, okay? Then have the conversation, reassure the children that we're all going to be okay. It's all right for them to be upset. It's all right for them to miss their dad and miss their mum, and to find this unusual, and it's going to take a bit of getting used to for everybody. But this is the plan that we have, certainly in the short term and hopefully in the long term. And then look at trying to maintain that relationship with your husband or ex-husband to be, in terms of not using the children or forgetting that the children are part of this process as well, and that not allowing the hurt to override the love of the children, okay? And just be there. That's all you can do. And look after yourself. Get support where you can. And I hope it works out for you. Do get in touch. We do have our Parenting After Separation and Divorce one-day course, which is coming up in March. Can't remember the date off the top of my head, but maybe come along to that, both of you, if you can work together. It's going to be online, and that might help you both through the process with some structured planning, because you have to set up a new family it is a new family setup for both of you, for all of you. So you need to look at the rules that you're going to have for your kids when they're with you, and dad needs to look at what the rules are going to be when he's with them, and you can do nothing about what the other person does. Okay, so if you're both available in March, please do come along. It will be worth your while, trust me. Hello to everybody who's saying hello. There's so many of you. I don't have time, but I hope you're all keeping well. Okay, second question for today. My 18-year-old son has this past weekend told me that he is gay. I've always known really and fully support him. He hasn't told his dad yet, as he is really religious and has always made his feelings known about how he sees being gay as wrong. My son told me he is petrified that his dad will kick him out of the house and that they will not have a relationship. I have to be honest, I'm a bit worried about this too. My husband is very set in his ways, and neither myself or my son are really sure of how we can approach him. Have you ever come across this situation in the past, and can you share any ideas on what we can do? Okay. So one, I suppose you're probably in the middle, stuck in the middle a bit, and you want to support your son, but you also have your husband on the other side as well. And I suppose in some ways, ultimately, it's very disappointing to hear that in this day and age there is still parents out there who are very clearly homophobic. They may not classify themselves as homophobic, but they will say, you know, being gay is all right out there, and all those gay people can be gay out there, but just not in my house. And that presents a lot of challenges. Whether it's because of his religious beliefs or not, ultimately his son is the one that needs to be supported right now. So I suppose I have come across this in the past. The first thing I will say is go and get your son or you contact the local LGBTQ I plus support services in your area, because they will have a literature, absolutely, have literature that can support you. So if you're in the Drogheda area, I know the Drogheda Outcomers are fantastic. Belong To in Ireland that's Belong TO are fantastic as well for having support and literature for people to have those conversations with their family members. So get in touch with them, get as much information from people who've been through the process and who have written on how to handle this as best as possible. Sit down with your son and reassure him that you have his back and that you will support him, and that it's okay for him to be gay in this family. Like, ultimately, you know, he hasn't chosen to be gay, it's how he is. So it's all right for him to just be himself in the family. And ultimately your husband is going to have to get used to this. But that doesn't mean that you steamroll him and just go, you need to cop on and understand that our son is way more important than your beliefs right now. Because while that might work, what can also happen is that can almost entrench somebody even further, where it's, I'm not even going to talk to that person anymore. And he may choose to do that, but that doesn't mean that you have to make that choice. You can still stay with your son and support your son and say, well, he's not getting kicked out of my house, so, you know, if you're choosing that, well, then you need to look for somewhere else. You know, it's not going to necessarily be easy. Maybe your husband will just go, okay, well, I felt that way in the past, but my son is different and I love my son, so maybe he will be okay with it. Maybe he'll just go, okay, well, I'm uncomfortable, but you're my son and I love you. That might happen. It might not. So maybe yourself and your son get the literature, get the information, sit down together, make a plan of how you're going to have the conversation, and, you know, think about your husband and what are the things that you know will maybe reassure him. So it might be that, look, this doesn't change anything. We still do the same things that we do. We still go to the same places we go. It's just how my life is. and answer any questions your husband might have. And then I would certainly not allow him to kick your son out, because it is your house, it's your son's home. I would not allow him to degrade your son. I would not allow him to try and cause a rift between you and your son either. And just support your son. That's what's important right now. Actually, your husband will be, he'll be okay within himself, hopefully. But the most important focus right now is your son. He's 18. He's still a very, very, very young man. And he's clearly really, really concerned about how this is going to go. So be there for him. You can still be there for your husband. So your husband might sit down to you and say, I'm really struggling with this. I don't know what to do. And you go, okay, well, let's talk it through. Let's go and speak to somebody who maybe has been in a similar situation. And again, those services will be able to put you in touch with other people, other parents who've gone through this. There are tons of parents who were not happy when their children told them that they were gay, and then through the support of other parents who were in a similar position, got to the point where they were like, actually, what's most important is my relationship with my son. I will always say to people, on your deathbed, do you want to be turning around and saying to your child, I was right not to talk to you for the last 40 years, cheerio? Most parents would probably say, no, I want to have a relationship with my child because that's more important. And I suppose the fact that there is a lot more support out there, and it's a lot more okay within the world to be gay, which it should be anyway, but we are progressing as a society, even with the bumps in the road that people see along the way. But your husband is going to be able to find other parents who will he'll be able to engage with and talk about, and maybe he needs to go and speak to somebody to manage what's going on inside of him and deal with those emotions and feelings within him, and that's okay too. So you can support both of them. It doesn't mean it's not going to be rocky, it doesn't mean it's not going to be challenging, but ultimately your son needs your support right now, and show him that support by being there for him, getting in touch with the agencies, get the information, make a plan, sit down with your husband, and then don't allow him to degrade your child, and help him. You can help him. Like, this is a lot of responsibility on you, but you wouldn't have sent in a message if you didn't want that, if you didn't think that you needed to deal with it. So this is just a way to deal with it, and then support them both. And who knows, maybe it will be a turning point for your husband in terms of how he views people who are gay as just being normal people as everybody else. Okay, and I hope that works out. Alright guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate it. Thank you again for the messages after the Elaine show. I appreciate it. I'm hopeful that we'll be able to get it up onto our social medias within the coming days, so you guys who maybe didn't get to see it will get a chance to tune in. Check out our podcasts. Please like and share and support, and we'll see you next week. Take care guys. See you then.